Spooktacular or something to that effect. So we're this episode told us a lot, and it also told us nothing at the exact same time. And before we even get into it, to all the people out there that was just like, oh, the X-Men and the mutants, and they're bringing in mutants and Pietro. They ain't tell you none of that. They ain't hint at none of that. Everybody got their hopes up for nothing. And to be honest, I feel like the Pietro situation, honestly, I don't think it has anything to do with mutants or some sort of like grand scheme of bringing over people. But I'll get to that in the end. And in this episode, we're doing Halloween. So Wanda, Vision, and the Churin, they got their costumes on. Uncle Pietro is sleeping his his deadbeat ass on the couch, and they didn't. Nobody's saying anything about the fact that he's here. Like the fact that he just came out of nowhere. There was no conversation. When Wanda opened the door and Pietro was standing at the door, there was no conversation. But it was very clear that Wanda doesn't recognize him, but still knows that's her brother. But she doesn't recognize him as the brother that she knows. So we didn't get any of that conversation. New episode starts, he's just sleeping on the couch. Wanda and Vision, they had on their classic comic book, costumes. We saw all that in the trailer. So I would have been more excited about it had I not been exposed to that, or had I not been spoiled to that leading up to this. But I guess it was still cool to see the costumes at the end of the day. So now Wanda and Vision, they're talking about going trick or treating, and then Wanda, Vision's just like, oh dear, you kids have fun, and I'm gonna go off to the neighborhood watch. And then she's like, but Vision, we have to. This is the kids' the first Halloween. Like, what are we supposed? I'm like, first of all, these kids is like 13, and you talk about it's their first time going trick-or-treating. Nobody got a problem with that. And then Quicksilver jumps in, Pedro, he jumps in, he's like, oh, I'll take care of the children, or whatever. He was just like, I'll be the uncle. So he's going around, zipping, he got one kid dressed up like him, and then Vision's just like, okay, dear, behave yourself. And he looked Wanda dead in the face, and he was like, don't get into trouble, dear. And then, Vision left. So Wanda, Pietro, and the kids, they're going outside, they're going trick-or-treating. Pietro stealing all the candy. They made a little kick-ass reference because, she was just like, one of the kids was just like, oh, can we go with Uncle Pietro to get candy? And then she was just like, yeah, just don't go too far. And then he was like, kick-ass. She made a smile. Ha, we get it. So after they basically like stole all the candy from everyone in the neighborhood, Wanda ended up bumping into, I forgot the black dude name. She ended up bumping into the black dude. And then, she asked, he was on the neighborhood watch. So he was listening, and then he was just like, oh, what's that? Kids' candy is disappearing all over the town. And then she knew that was her brother. But then she was just like, oh, just call Vision and have Vision take care of it. And he was like, Vision ain't here. And she was like, oh, well, I thought he was going to the neighborhood watch with you. And she was like, Vision ain't up here, woman. He's just like, yo, but let me go handle my business. And then, but actually, he said something, too, because he was just like, when she said that, she thought Vision was on the neighborhood watch or whatever. And then he was like, oh, well, do you want me to change something for you, or do you want me to like alter something? Like, he's speaking as though he's aware of the television show. So he's just like, because she was under the impression that Vision was on neighborhood watch. He was like, yo, do you want me to fix that? Can we can we alter that or whatever? But she was just like, no, it's everything's fine. So then like he goes away. So her and her brother, like her and Pedro, they're walking around, they're having conversation. Pedro brought up one thing where he was just like, oh, remember back when we were kids, because Wanda said that her costume was a gypsy costume from where her and Pedro were from. And then Pedro, he was just like, yeah, remember when we were kids and we went to that old lady's house and then, like she scared us or whatever. And then Wanda was just like, I remember that very differently. And then, he was just like, oh, that's because of the trauma. You just forgot certain things. And then later on, they kept referencing things about their childhood. And every single time they referenced things about their childhood, Wanda remembered it one way, Pietro remembered it another way. And that's because he's not her Pietro. There was even a moment where the two of them were talking, and then, she was just like, what happened to your accent? And he was like, what happened to your accent? Because in Ultron, he had an accent, and then Wanda had an accent too, but then it eventually just disappeared. So they're questioning a lot of things. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they didn't explain this either. The kids now have superpowers. Well, the kids had powers before because they were able to make themselves like grow into adults. But now one kid has Uncle Pietro's super speed, and then the other kid, he has his mother's like telekinetic abilities. So the kids are now running all over the place. And then they were just and she told them, she was like, listen, she's like, you can run around and have fun, but don't go past Ellis Street. So her and Pietro, like, they're sitting down, they're having a conversation. She's talking to Pietro, And Pedro brought up the parents. He was just like, "Oh, mom and dad would like this," and then she was like, "Yeah, like I think they would." And then Pedro just got deep. He just like flipped the switch, and then he was just like, how the hell did you do all this? Because remember a couple of episodes back, Vision was, well, actually it was last episode, Vision was just like, how come there are no children in the neighborhood? He's like, all kids are the only two, the parks are empty, there are no children in Westfield at all, that makes no sense, Wanda. And then now all of a sudden, now there are kids everywhere, there's like 50 billion kids running all over the streets. So he was just like, yo, how'd you do that? And then she was just like, what do you mean? And then he was just like, you brought the kids up. He was like, you're doing a good job of keeping like the families together, giving everybody good jobs, putting them in good situations. He's completely aware of the fact that they're on the TV show. And the fact that he's aware of that, it makes me feel like, again, I said that I do feel like there's another entity, like an evil entity that's out there that's controlling things behind the scenes that Wanda's not controlling. Because everybody keeps basically flat out hinting at and saying that Wanda's the one that's controlling the entire situation. But there are still certain things that even she doesn't know about, like, for instance, her brother. She said 50 million times in the last episode when the doorbell rang, she said, I didn't do that. She was like, I didn't create him, and even she was suspicious about him. That's why she kept asking questions and kept talking about the childhood. But he's aware of the fact that, according to him, she created all this and she's controlling all this. So then he asked her, he was like, yo, how did you do it? And then she was just like, to be honest with you, she's like, I don't know. She's just like, I don't know. She said she remembers feeling like empty. She remembers feeling like sadness and then loneliness. And then bam, next thing you know, she's in Westfield. So, now they're leaving to ponder that for a minute. So now we go into Sword and Monica Rambeau, Darcy, Agent Woo. Agent Woo, I remember where I saw Agent Woo now. He was in Aquaman. He was the guy in Aquaman who at the end of the movie had rescued Black Manta, and he was working on Black Manta's tech and almost blew a hole in the wall right before Black Manta said, I want Aquaman. So that's where he had a mustache. That's why I recognize him. So Sword is talking now, and they're trying to decide what to do about Wanda. Monica's just like, bro, she's talking to the white dude that's in charge of Sword. She's like, bro, taking a shot at her was the wrong move because you could have got everybody killed. And he was just like, well, she's a threat and I'm not gonna, bend over and take it. And then she was just like, first of all, she was like, Wanda's not really like the threat. She was just like, you keep looking at her as the problem, but if you feel like she's the problem, that means she's also the solution. And then he was like, you know what, Captain Rambeau, he was just like, maybe you're not the person for the job. After being blipped away or snapped away, whatever y'all want to call it, he was like, maybe your perspective is all messed up, because of the time you spent with Carol Danvers, and everything. And then she told him, and then Monica was just like, she was like, bro, first of all, see, I like that shit. I like when she got real on him. She was like, first of all, don't use the fact that, she's like, don't use the last 5 years of everybody being gone and you having to take up the mantle. Don't use that as an excuse, I'm saying, to be an asshole. And then he got mad. He kicked he kicked her out. He kicked Darcy out. He kicked Wu out. Like, he kicked all three of them out. So it's clear that I keep calling him the general. It's clear that the general, we'll just go with that. It's clear that the general is the bad guy. And I feel like they had Vision's body at Sword. And I feel like one or two things here. Not one or two things. Just one thing. I feel like, okay, so Vision's body was at Sword. Whatever this other evil entity is, I feel like that person brainwashed Wanda, sent Wanda into Sword to go get Vision's body. Because at the end of the day, I think this particular person, this entity, this person behind the scenes that we don't know about, she brainwashed Wanda to kidnap Vision's body, to bring Vision back to life, and put her in a situation where she can create children, because I think whoever this bad guy is wants his hands on them damn kids. And I feel like that's where this is headed. So he mind controlled her. He dropped her off in Westfield. I feel like he forced her to create like a bubble around it. And then eventually Wanda snapped out of the mind control, and then she just took it from there. Because Wanda keeps saying over and over again, she doesn't remember. It's like she doesn't remember how we got here. She doesn't remember the situation, but she knows for a fact that she's controlling it. She knows that she's controlling the bubble. She knows that she's in a bubble. She knows that she's on a television show. So she's aware of the aftermath of the bubble or the hex, but she doesn't know anything that happened prior to that because she was being mind controlled. And I kind of feel like the general maybe has something to do with it too. Maybe the general is working with this evil entity behind the scenes, or maybe he is the evil entity behind the scenes. So that's pretty much my theory on him. But it's clear that he's the bad guy. So Darcy, Monica and Wu, they go, they beat up the guards. They go sneak in to a sword facility, like a sword room. Darcy hooks the computer up to her to her laptop. She starts working, she starts downloading some information, and then meanwhile Monica's talking about going back into the bubble, and then Darcy's like, hold up, because she's like, the general has your blood scans, and your blood, your DNA, everything about you got rewritten twice. So she was just like, because like your chemical makeup, and your DNA and everything got rewritten twice. She's like, I don't advise you going back in there because it might get rewritten a third time. And then Monica was like, look, honey, she's like, I done been through this like 50 million times. So she's like, I know what I'm dealing with. I'm gonna save Wanda, and I don't care what I gotta do to go do it. So Darcy was like, all right, fine. The person that Monica was talking about, she said she has like an aerospace friend or an aerotech friend that's supposed to help them get into the bubble. The person texted her. He was like, yo, I'm gonna meet you. It is a guy. He was like, yo, I'm gonna meet you at this location. Her and Wu went down to the location. Darcy stayed. So here we are. Now Vision, Vision, he took a trip. He took a trip to the pole side of town. And whereas like the part of Westfield where Vision and his family lives, it's all bright and colorful and it's magic and rainbows and everyone loves everybody. He went to the hood where he was at. It was dark, like the neighborhood looked like shit. There were kids still running around. Certain people were frozen though. Like there was a woman who was like frozen in place who was crying. She was in the middle of like, looks like she was hanging up she was hanging up like wet clothes or whatever. One dude was stuck in his doorway, and it wasn't the same situation that it was on the other side. So whatever magic that Wanda's using to control this town, her magic doesn't really extend, well, as far as the happy version of her magic, giving everybody the happy ending, it doesn't extend to that particular side of town. And then Vision's just walking around, just looking at everybody, just being stuck in one place because all these people are being mind controlled. He gets to the end of the block and he sees he sees Agnes, of all people, sitting in the damn car. Apparently, Agnes tried to flee the town. So, and I thought it was funny because here we are, like the kids are going trick-or-treating. Every single time the kids do something, here come Agnes ass. And I'm just like, we're doing trick-or-treating, we're doing all this, where's Agnes at? So Agnes tried to run. She tried to flee the town, she tried to run. Vision ran up on her, and then she was asking Vision, she was like, oh, how do you get to Court Square? And then he was like, you don't know how to get to the Court Square of a town that you grew up in. And then he used his Vision power, and he snapped her out of the trance she was in and brought her back to reality. And then when she saw him, she was like, oh my God, she was like, you're Vision, you're an Avenger. She was like, are you here to save us? And he's like, yes, my name is Vision, but what's an Avenger? And then she was like, well, how could you forget what an Avenger is? And then she was like, oh my God, like we're all doomed. And then she told Vision, she was like, you're not even supposed to be alive, you're supposed to be dead. And then he's just like, wait, hold on for a second, while you trying to leave the city. And then, she was just like, I can't leave, Wanda won't let us leave. She said Wanda won't even let us think about leaving. And I was like, that's pretty powerful. She was just like, she won't even let us think about leaving. And then she just started like spazzing out. So he put her back into the trance that she was in. And then she busted a U-turn and went back to the town. So now Vision's just like, okay, this is weird. There are two separate towns here. There's Pleasantville, and then there's the other side of the tracks. So he starts walking a little further, and then he sees the force field, the end of the force field bubble. He then, when he sees the damn bubble, he starts pushing himself through the bubble trying to get out. Once he tries to get out, the general got an alert on his phone. All the SWORD agents went outside to greet Vision. Darcy was still there. She was still nearby. So she saw Vision trying to like push himself through the bubble. So Darcy ran outside. Vision is basically like trying to push himself through, trying to get through the force field. He can't get through the force field because the force field's kind of like pulling him back. As he's trying to force himself through, pieces of him are ripping off like one by one. And then the general starts laughing and goes, haha, he really trying to get out of here, ain't he? And then Darcy comes out of nowhere, and then she's like, why is no one helping him? And I said the same thing. I'm just like, he's trying to push himself through the bubble. He's screaming that people are in danger. And everybody just laughing like, haha, look at this silly fool. And then Darcy was just like, yo, what up? Like, y'all should be trying to get him out and asking him questions. But then the general made it seem like he was well aware of that. He was just like, oh, look at this fool trying to get up out of here. He really wants to leave. And so now I'm kind of feeling like, was the general, that, like I said before, I feel like the general probably had a hand, like maybe the general, if the general is this secret evil entity, or if the general is working for this evil entity, I feel like the general and that entity created the bubble, dropped Wanda and Vision in the bubble, and then no, because Wanda controls the bubble. See, that's why this whole thing is confusing. You know what I'm saying? But he knows something. He obviously knows more than he's letting on. So now, like Vision's trying to break through, everybody laughing. And then at that moment, they took Darcy, they handcuffed Darcy to one of the cars. At that point, little Billy, the one with the mind control powers, he ends up hearing Vision calling for help. So then he runs over to to his mama, and then he's just like, he's like, yo, dad's in trouble. And then she's like, where is he? Then he's just like, oh, mom, like he's screaming, there are guys with guns and blah blah blah. And then Quicksilver made a joke. He was just like, what are you worried about, sis? He was like, your dead husband can't die twice. And then she got mad and like blasted him across the street, because she's at the point now where she knows something's up with Pietro. So then Wanda was just like, all right, let's put this show on pause for a second. She did the Saved by the Bell timeout, and then she froze everybody, because again, Wanda's controlling everybody. She froze everybody. She used her power, to see what was going on with Vision. And then because Vision was falling apart, because he was trying to like get himself out of the force field, Wanda used her power to expand the bubble, to cover more ground, and to also get rid of Sword once and for all, because when the bubble started expanding, it whooshed over Vision. So now Vision should be back to normal. But then it went over the Sword base. It turned the Sword base into a circus. It turned the agents into clowns. The only people that weren't affected by it was Wu, Monica, the general, the Latina agent who played on Swamp Thing, and then some other random dude that was driving the car. Darcy, she actually got sucked into the bubble now, so now Darcy's a part of Wandaland. Like Darcy's a part of but they never showed us what Darcy looked like. They didn't show us what she was handcuffed to, like if she was handcuffed to like an ice cream truck or something. So, and then like things started changing, like diners turned into car dealerships, army vehicles turned into ice cream trucks. So Wanda basically expanded her range and expanded the bubble, because Wanda's controlling all this from, she's controlling all this to get her happy ending. I still believe in that. I still believe Wanda's controlling everything because she's trying to get her happy ending. But again, I just feel like Wanda created the bubble, and then some other evil force put Pietro in the bubble. And who knows? Because again, certain things Wanda's not controlling. Wanda's not controlling Pietro. Someone else created Pietro and dumped Pietro into the bubble, which is why Pietro knew to ask all these questions about, well, how did you make the kids show up? How come you did this? Like, how are you controlling this and that? So someone else is controlling Pietro, because it's clear Wanda don't know nothing about Pietro. So, and who knows, whoever this person might be, maybe this person exists in the X-Men universe, which is why they chose that specific version of Pietro to put into the bubble. But again, we didn't get any answers to any of these questions, so we just have to speculate. And then after that, after Wanda used her power to expand the bubble, I believe the general did get away. So now the general, Monica, Wu, they're the only ones on the outside now. And we need to find out what's happening with Darcy. Wanda turned off the power, and now she's controlling more of Westfield and controlling more in New Jersey. So that was it. Like I said, like the episode was cool. I was more interested in the sword stuff than I was all the trick-or-treating shit. because to be honest, the whole thing with her and Pedro didn't go anywhere. All we know, like the only thing that we know is the two of them have two different memories about their childhood. And Pietro apparently knows that Wanda's creating a television series. And I said, that's it. We didn't get any answers. So I was just like, I was more interested in the Monica thing, because now we're talking about her DNA, why her DNA got rewritten twice. The person who she's supposed to meet that they keep making they keep going out of their way to make this person a secret, and the whole thing with Vision now, because Vision's aware of what's going on. So now that Vision's trying to bust out of the bubble, and I want to know what's going on with the general. Like, I'm interested in all the sword stuff. like I want to know the answers to all the sword stuff. But with the regular TV sitcom stuff, because I think this time we're in the 90s now, so they did like a Nickelodeon style, like TV series. So like I said, we're getting more of that, but we'll see. Let me know in the comments below. Like, let me know what you think of WandaVision. Tell me your theories about who created the bubble, who's in the bubble, who's out the bubble, what's going on with Quicksilver. Let's try to come up with some answers that we didn't get. I believe we're only getting 8 episodes, maybe 9. This was episode 6, so we got 2 more episodes to go, maybe 3. Thank you for tuning in, guys. Check me out on social media. Check out the Tacos and Geeks podcast, where I do the podcast. I believe like every 2 Sundays. Myself, Tacos and Geek Squad with Sean and Justin. Gotham Geek Girl Nadia, she's also on the podcast. Follow her as well. The podcast is very cool. I'll definitely leave a link in the description if anybody wants to check it out. Check me out on social media, Twitter, Instagram. Hit the notification bell. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Leave a comment, like and or subscribe. We got Batwoman coming up this Sunday. Batwoman's back on Valentine's Day. Black Lightning on Monday. And again, those are, so now we got Black Lightning, we got Batwoman, and we got WandaVision, and I believe the next show that comes out is Superman and Lois, and we're gonna talk about that too. Thanks. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and for WandaVision. Until next time, I'm Elvis. Yeah.